Hi, everyone, and welcome to BookTrib Presents 15 Minutes with, a Merrill Moss Media production. Today, we are excited to welcome author Brit Poulson to the series. Brit is the creator of the Clarity Compass and founder of Clarity Compass Consulting, a leadership consulting firm which specializes in transformative executive coaching and leadership development programs. He is a Fortune 500 leadership expert and holds a Ph.D. in psychodynamics, Jungian, I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, Jungian, and group psychology from Pacifica Graduate Institute. We're talking today about his book, The Clarity Compass, which is out now, and you can grab it on Amazon. Thank you so much for joining us, Brett.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on, Beth.
Oh, absolutely. So let's first talk about The Clarity Compass, the book. Its tag is see more clearly, have creative conversations, and live the life you want. What can you tell us more about what's within the pages?
Great question. Yeah. So it presents as a business book where it's like, okay, I want to take my career or take my work life to the next level. But in the end, it's really about how do we take on perspectives that will be more effective than the ones we currently have. So that could be at work, that could be at home, that could even be with my own career or personal development.
Absolutely.
So it's really an analytical tool that helps us to understand the world better and then eventually come back to ourselves and understand who we are at deeper levels.
Okay, wonderful. So can you break down for the viewers the actual idea of the compass? I know each, north, south, east, and west, each area, there's a methodology behind it. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So it's the north is intentions, moving to the south, which is actions, and then separating out east and west, which is facts versus stories.
Okay.
So for most things, if I'm eating and I just want some salt, my intention is to have my food taste better. So I just say pass the salt. That's the actions.
Okay.
But given our lives are so complex with so many moving parts, the better we can focus on our intentions and get clearer on our intentions in these complex situations, and then really step into actions that move the action forward, the more effective it will be.
Okay.
And then for the more complex situations, we actually want to add this facts versus stories piece, where most people are collapsing their stories into facts. Like she was rude, he doesn't like me, things that we don't really know for sure that aren't facts, we're treating as facts. And the more we, one, separate the facts from the stories, and then two, look at what are the stories I am making up, then our view of the situation can change, and we can create greater possibilities for better solutions.
Okay. So one of the biggest questions here is, would you rather be right or effective? Can
Yes.
you break that down a little bit? Some people may not know the difference or realize that there is one.
Yeah, good. And a lot of people say, well, that's a false continuum. You can be both right and effective, and that's right, and
Absolutely.
I'm right and effective. But so many situations we get into, there is this place where I can try to convince the other person I'm right, or if I actually listen to them and hear what they're saying and paraphrase and allow them to impact me, I'll have influence over them. They're going to hear me listening. They're going to know I'm cooperating.
Yep.
But it's an ego part of us that just says, if, if we tend to operate this way, if you only understood the world like I understood the world, we'd all be okay.
Of course.
Yeah. So that's about being right as opposed to being effective. And
Okay.
it's a struggle for every one of us. We don't realize how stuck we are in our own, what I call reality maps.
Absolutely. Can you break that down a little bit, the idea of the reality map?
Yes. Yeah. So it's an exciting idea where we start forming what the world is at a very young age. And we don't really know what the world is. We just start developing internal maps or belief systems that represent the world. And then we navigate the world based on our own internal maps.
Okay.
So a reality map is a map of reality that's inside of us. And unfortunately, the ego can get rigid with that. And there is a homeostasis in the reality map where we want to keep it the same. We don't want to start pulling parts apart and questioning ourselves. Most of the time, the ego in us wants to say, I know what life is like, I know what the situation is like, and let me tell you what you need to do differently. And
Absolutely.
so So it clings to the rigid reality maps, and the clarity compass is really about how do you loosen up on that and see where your reality maps are off, where you have blind spots.
Okay. Now, there's a very specific thing you also talk about with the polarity of north and south and the differences. Is that along the same lines? Is that another idea or?
Yeah, so the idea of the reality maps works across the polarities,
Okay.
meaning we're working with those polarities to try to get a deeper understanding of what our reality maps are and even question them. So, for example, most of the time people start out using the clarity compass with my intention is to get a better job.
Mm-hmm.
And then so they'll play with that for a while and they'll use the clarity compass, they'll look at the facts and the stories, and each one of those have subcategories. And as they're breaking that down, they think, a better job. That's not very specific. Actually, what I'm really wanting is because I've had better jobs, but they're not as satisfying. So really, what I realize my intention is that I want a job that's deeply satisfying to me. So they change the intention there. So there's a
Gotcha.
shift in the reality map going from I just need a better job, in some vague sense, to actually as I'm changing my reality map, I'm actually saying I really deserve or want or move to have a job that really suits me or I feel called to or I feel passionate about.
Is that where the career development kind of fits in with this compass?
Yeah, yeah, because we're shaping our career. In fact, I had a session just yesterday. I said, one of the challenges, what I said to my client, it fits here, is one of the challenges we're going to have is you're looking at you're looking at these future possibilities based off of past assumptions about what you had to do.
Right.
So, for example, in a previous job, she was a fundraiser, and she hates fundraising. And as we're looking at new jobs, she's just automatically assuming if I do this job or this job, this job, I'm gonna have to do fundraising. And I said no. I said no. That's part of your reality maps that are stuck there.
Yeah.
Our job is to open you up to new possibilities. I said if we'd done this work 5 years ago, you wouldn't be doing the fundraising in your job right now because we could have figured ways around it. So again, her
Okay.
reality maps are stuck in terms of this is what life is, this is what my job would be, or that's what these kind of jobs are. And it's really opening up the reality maps to see the world anew, to open up new possibilities for your own career, but also for working with others as well.
Absolutely. Can you, Britt, talk a little bit about your background, your career, what kind of led you to this method and writing this book?
Yeah, thank you. That's not a question I'm often asked. So I like
I
that.
think it's important in the development of the writing process and why you wrote it. And
Thank you.
yeah.
Well, I think that my undergraduate degree was in accounting. And although I worked for Dale Carnegie courses, How to Win Friends and Influence People, right out of
Okay.
college. So I've been in counseling or facilitation and so forth since then for the last
Gotcha.
35 years. But I think it was also just I picked accounting for me because I didn't really know who I was. I was kind of
Mm.
almost dead to myself. And I realized that there's a lot more to being human, to who I was, than I was even awake to.
Mm-hmm.
And so I became passionate around helping people to transform their lives, to wake up to the possibilities that are there in terms of how they can be more effective, more powerful, have more joy in their life.
Right.
And so my whole career has been about deepening this understanding of how do we change at the deepest levels of being, not just learn how to paraphrase or learn how to state
Mm-hmm.
intentions, which actually I encourage, but really how do I change how I'm seeing the world, especially in the current political climate. This is a skill we need not only on a personal level but really on a national level.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So, in terms of organization and the workplace, we're kind of in this email-driven, technology society. How do you keep that clarity, or in some cases, how do you find it and push through with the clarity compass?
Yeah, yeah, I love that because I was consulting back in the 80s and the 90s, and I thought, oh, the world's just so complex, and it's like it's nothing compared to the complexity and the matrix organizations we have now.
Right.
Well, and that's why it's more relevant now. It's relevant then, but the clarity compass and the tools are even more relevant because there's too much information coming at us. There's more information than what our brains can assimilate.
Right.
So we have heuristics or shortcuts or rules of thumb that we're trying to figure out the world through the limited reality maps that we have. And so the idea with the clarity compass is It's like, what are we, one, not looking at in that complexity? What have we truncated or shortened, and
Mhm.
it's an abbreviated world. We just, if you're conservative, you just want to look at a conservative station. If you're liberal, you just want to talk about. So I just want to be reinforced what I already know.
Of
All
course.
this complexity. So the clarity compass is, in a sense, help us look at what we're not looking at, and then package it in certain ways. It's like, life is manageable, or at least this situation's more manageable. My
Right.
ego can be thankful that I'm creating the simplicity, that even as I'm exploring new things and complicated things and looking at my blind spots, that I'm trying to keep it simple and it's manageable rather than just this, as you were describing, this onslaught of emails, information, technology.
Right.
Rather than be overwhelmed, it's like, I have a way of assimilating it in meaningful ways.
Okay. What organizations are you working with, if you can talk about them, and what are some of your like top tips that you kind of give each one that you say, this is the first place to start?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so right now I'm working with Philips. I'm working with a lot of Stantec's a large multinational company.
Right.
I circle through different ones like Amazon and
Okay.
Microsoft, and so anywhere from large firms to mid-sized firms. I sometimes I'll be there for a while, and other times I'll just do what I need to do, go away, and then they call me back. So it's
In and
yeah,
out.
different firms. This keeps it interesting that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of your question about recommendations,
Hmm.
it's I try to package probably too much in the clarity compass. It's like, you're putting everything with the kitchen sink in there.
Right.
Really, the one thing, just in a simple piece, is what is my intention? What is my intention for, like, this interview? What's my intention of this
Mhm.
conversation? Why am I even opening my mouth?
Mhm.
Why are we having this meeting? It's one of the most simple things we can do, just in terms
Yeah.
of getting clarity on myself, in terms of, and what are some of my intentions and deeper wants, which is a subcategory of intentions, that actually may not be as nice. Like, I want to make you wrong, or I want to get back at you, or I want you to respect me, or,
Mhm.
it's what are the things that are underlying there that are impacting my intentions that I may not be conscious of. So the more
Hmm.
aware I am of my intentions, all levels, and the more I speak the ones that I really want to pursue, the more focused I can be, and again brings that clarity and sorts out from all the inundation of information.
Hmm. Very interesting. What about the effectiveness of human resources? How can they help in these terms? Is there something that they can add to this organizational clarity?
Mm. Meaning HR professionals, or
Yeah, the HR in general, are they a part of this discussion of the clarity compass?
yes, yeah. In fact, one of the subsidiaries of the larger Philips, actually the
Okay.
HR there hired me to do the Clarity Compass
Hmm.
twice for pretty much the same group.
Oh, okay.
Not because they didn't get it the first time. It's like slow group. No, no, they're really sharp folks. They just realized they got a lot out of the first round, and like a year later, they said, we want to just deepen our understanding
Hmm.
and have a whole. It was a program over time, and we just deepened it. So
Right.
for me, working with HR people, either directly with the Clarity Compass or partnering with HR around how can I work with the HR department in terms of teaming up to serve their clients, is how I work with HR. In terms
Okay.
of, if somebody is in a company, then I actually recommend talking to their HR person. Say, I'm using this book, The Clarity Compass. It does help to get an outside perspective. The book
Right.
is written so that I can try to open up myself, and it's helpful in that sense. And if I can get a friend that I can partner with, or an HRBP, HR business partner that I can work with, that can give me some good feedback, or work with the Clarity Compass with me, it just deepens the insights that are possible.
Oh, okay. What about one thing I wanted to ask you, for you personally writing the book, the writing process that went into kind of developing chapter by chapter, did it go the way you thought it would go? Were you surprised by anything along the way?
It was, I don't mean to complain, but but it was it was way harder, because for example, I wrote a dissertation. I love my dissertation. I wrote this book, and it was like a dissertation, and people were like, great, good ideas, but nobody can understand what you're saying.
Oh, no.
And honestly, I went through 5 different people editing
Oh, okay.
Each one trying to make it more accessible and more accessible. And each time I'm like, okay, I'm done. And they say, it's still not
No.
accessible. I'm like, yeah, but look at all we did. And it's like, no, it needs more examples, needs more of this. So that's the part that surprised me, just how much work it took to
Mhm.
make it more accessible and meaningful to the reader.
Right. And
So I'm
the
pleased that we did the work. I was just surprised.
the breaking down, as you said, constantly making it accessible, was there anything that kind of came out of that process for you as the person who, came up with the Clarity Compass? Was the constant breaking down process like, oh, I didn't even think of this when I was creating it? Was there any kind of, process like that happened while you were writing?
Yeah, I think that the whole process actually did deepen my understanding. I've been training in this in years, and I've been doing
For
a lot of
sure, yeah.
one-on-one training. But
Right.
it's different when editors are pushing back and saying,
Mm.
"How important is this concept really?" And I'm like, "No, it's important." And I'm like, "Well, maybe."
But why? Tell me why.
Why exactly? Why do you need this in here?
Yep.
So I think that for me it deepened my understanding
Mm.
of it, and also I think the reality maps piece it's a complex idea,
Absolutely.
and so that one I think in particular, as we worked on that, that became much clearer for me and for the book.
Okay.
And I think too, in addition, two things: the ego and heart, because the
Mm.
ego and heart are in there, and they weren't in the first round. And so as I was going on, I decided that the ego played a bigger part.
Mm.
So it's fairly significantly in there now, and even heart versus head is not in there significantly, but it's in there as a place where it's like, okay, we're starting at an accessible place where anybody can just say, hey, this makes sense. It's logical, it's analytical. Engineers
Yeah.
love Clarity Compass, but it's an invitation to go deeper and deeper and even come to a heart place in terms of what's really meaningful. What are my values? What's important to me, and how does that play out in these situations?
Absolutely. So, as we kind of wrap up here, because already we're getting out of time, what ultimately do you hope the message is from this book? I think the message, obviously, of the Clarity Compass is pretty clear and it obviously helpful. But the book itself, is there something that you hope anyone and everyone can get out of it?
Yeah, thanks for asking because that's more personal to me,
Mm-hmm.
so three things come to mind even as you're asking that. One is, especially this year, I'm thinking, oh, I'm hoping at a national level, at a global level, but especially at a national level,
Yeah,
that people can come together rather than find ways to fight. The
absolutely.
second is I have just visions of couples and friends, and this is all kind of beyond the business application,
Right.
but couples coming together and having great relationships because they're using the Clarity Compass.
Mm-hmm.
And this one's a little bit to the left, to out of left field, but always have this vision of some teenager in Malaysia who's in a village somehow picking up the book or and just saying, "Hey, I'm going to transform my life and transform my village."
Mm-hmm.
And just from reading the book and her experience with the Clarity Compass. So it's
Absolutely.
something about helping people who may not have the resources to hire a coach or yeah, to just have their lives be richer, better, more effective, more joyful.
Absolutely. Well, that's amazing. And, thank you so much for joining us. And we've got the Clarity Compass here. Make sure you go grab a copy. Britt, I can't thank you enough for talking with us and breaking it down for us. It's really, yeah, really great concept and really interesting, very helpful.
Thanks, Beth. It was a pleasure being on here with you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you all for watching. Have a good night.